It was 1972. Hollywood was a very different world back then. A casting director leaned back in his chair, looked straight at Bruce Lee, and said, "You're Chinese. American audiences will never accept you as the lead. You can be the sidekick. That's all we're offering." Bruce Lee didn't blink. He didn't argue. He didn't beg. He just smiled, picked up his jacket, and walked out the door. Everyone in that room thought that was the last they'd ever see of him. They thought his dream had just died in a folding chair in a back office in Burbank. They were wrong, because what happened next, and what a young unknown named Tony Danza would do in just 4 seconds, changed the entire history of Hollywood forever. To understand how big this moment was, you need to go back to the beginning. Bruce Lee was born in San Francisco in 1940, but he grew up in Hong Kong. From the time he was a little boy, he was different. He didn't just practice martial arts. He lived it. He breathed it. His father was a famous actor in Hong Kong, so the world of performance was already in his blood. By the time Bruce Lee returned to America as a young man, he had one dream: to be a movie star. Not a background actor, not a stuntman, a real, honest-to-goodness movie star, the kind whose name goes above the title. But Hollywood in the 1960s had very strict ideas about who could be a star. Chinese actors were given tiny roles. They played servants, cooks, villains with fake accents, and mysterious strangers who showed up and disappeared. Nobody was handing leading roles to Asian men. It simply wasn't done. Bruce Lee knew this. He knew every single door would be harder to open for him. But he had something that most people don't have: an unshakable belief that talent, when it's real and undeniable, cannot be ignored forever. So he got to work. He pitched an idea for a TV show called The Warrior. The concept was brilliant: a Chinese martial arts master traveling through the American Wild West. Bruce would play the lead. He wrote it. He developed it. He practically built it from scratch. The studio loved the concept. They bought the idea immediately. Then they called Bruce Lee back in and told him the role he created would be given to a white actor. The show became Kung Fu, starring David Carradine, a white man, in a role that Bruce Lee had designed for himself. That rejection would have finished most people. Most people would have packed up, gone home, and given up on their dream. Bruce Lee went to Hong Kong and became the biggest movie star in Asia instead. Back in Hong Kong, Bruce Lee became a legend almost overnight. His movies, Fists of Fury, The Chinese Connection, Way of the Dragon, were breaking box office records across all of Asia. Audiences had never seen anything like him. He wasn't just fast, he was impossibly fast. His movements were so quick that film directors had to shoot him at 32 frames per second instead of the usual 24, just so the audience could see what his hands and feet were actually doing. He was a force of nature, and word started spreading back to Hollywood. Warner Brothers came calling. They wanted Bruce Lee to make a film with them, a genuine Hollywood production. The movie was called Enter the Dragon. And this time, Bruce Lee had leverage. He negotiated his way to the lead role. Nobody could take this one away from him. But here's what most people don't know about that period of Bruce Lee's life. The struggle wasn't just external. It wasn't just about closed doors and rejected scripts. The struggle was also internal, deeply personal. Bruce Lee had suffered a severe back injury in 1970. He had been told by doctors that he might never kick again. He was 29 years old, at the peak of his powers, and suddenly flat on his back, in pain, unable to train, unable to do the one thing that made him who he was. For 6 months, he could barely move. Most people close to him feared his career was over before it had truly begun in Hollywood. But Bruce Lee used those 6 months to do something remarkable. He read everything. He studied philosophy, Eastern and Western. He wrote down his thoughts on life, on discipline, on what it means to push beyond what the mind thinks is possible. He developed his own philosophy of movement, of living, what he called Jeet Kune Do, or the way of the intercepting fist. He came back stronger than ever, not just physically, but mentally. The world, however, was still not ready to give him full credit. Even as Enter the Dragon was being filmed in 1972 and early 1973, studio executives were privately nervous. Would American audiences pay to watch a Chinese man fight and win? Would they root for him? Would they love him the way they loved John Wayne or Steve McQueen? These were the quiet doubts that surrounded Bruce Lee every single day. Even the people making his movie didn't fully believe in what they were making. Bruce Lee believed enough for all of them. Now here is where Tony Danza enters the story. And this is the part that very few people know. It was during the filming of one of the fight choreography sessions for Enter the Dragon. The production was full of martial artists, stuntmen, and actors who had been hired to fight against Bruce Lee in the film's elaborate battle sequences. Tony Danza, young, athletic, unknown at the time, was brought in as part of the group of fighters. He was a former boxer, strong, confident, and fast in his own right. At one point during a break in filming, someone dared Tony Danza to spar with Bruce Lee. Not a real fight, just a light sparring session, a little back and forth to see what the fuss was all about. Tony Danza agreed. He was a professional boxer. He figured he could hold his own for a few minutes, maybe land a jab or two, show the crew that a street-smart boxer from New York could at least keep up with the guy everyone was calling a legend. The two men faced each other. In 4 seconds, it was over. Tony Danza never even saw what happened. One moment he was in his boxing stance, focused, ready. The next moment Bruce Lee had moved, struck, and reset before Danza's brain had finished processing that the exchange had begun. Danza later described the moment by saying he had never in his life, not in the boxing gym, not on the street, not anywhere, felt so completely outmatched. And he wasn't ashamed to admit it. He said it was like trying to fight a thought. Bruce Lee wasn't there, and then he was, and then it was done. But here's the part that really matters. The crew saw it. The director saw it. The producers who had been hovering nervously around the set, quietly wondering if they had made a mistake, quietly wondering if Bruce Lee was really as special as people said. They all saw it. And in that moment, every single doubt disappeared. Nobody said a word. They didn't need to. The silence that followed those 4 seconds said everything. Word spread through the Hollywood circles quickly. People who had spent years quietly dismissing Bruce Lee, calling him a novelty, calling him a curiosity who would never truly cross over to American audiences, suddenly stopped talking. Enter the Dragon was released in July 1973. It became one of the highest-grossing martial arts films in history. It earned over $90 million worldwide. Bruce Lee became an international superstar, not just in Asia, but everywhere. America, Europe, Africa, South America, the whole world. The man they had once offered only a sidekick role was now the main attraction. The man they had cast aside was now the most recognizable face on the planet. And it was Tony Danza's 4-second moment of honesty, admitting freely that he had been completely overwhelmed, that helped seal Bruce Lee's legend in the eyes of the people who needed to see it most. Bruce Lee passed away on July 20th, 1973. Just 1 month before Enter the Dragon was officially released in America. He was only 32 years old. The world never got to see what else he might have done, the films he might have made, the stories he might have told, the doors he might have opened for every person who looked like him and dared to dream of something bigger than the world said they were allowed to have. But here's what he left behind, and this is the part that matters most for you and for me. Bruce Lee never waited for permission. He never waited for the world to be ready. When they told him no, he found another way. When they took his idea, he built something bigger. When they gave him the sidekick, he went and created a leading role that the whole world would remember forever. He once wrote, "Do not pray for an easy life. Pray for the strength to endure a difficult one." He wrote those words while he was lying flat on his back with a broken spine, wondering if he would ever walk normally again. That is not a motivational quote for a coffee mug. That is a man who lived through the darkest moments of his own story and chose, every single day, to keep going. Tony Danza went on to become a beloved star himself, best known for his role in Who's the Boss? But he has spoken about that 4-second sparring moment with Bruce Lee many times over the years. He doesn't talk about it with embarrassment. He talks about it with pride, because he was there. He was present for one of the most genuine moments of greatness he ever witnessed up close. And isn't that something? That greatness doesn't just inspire the people who achieve it. It inspires everyone who is lucky enough to witness it, even for just 4 seconds. How many times in your own life have you been told that you don't fit the mold? That someone like you doesn't belong in a certain room? That the role you want has already been given to someone else? Bruce Lee's answer to that question is still alive in every film of his that plays today. In every young person who trains martial arts and dreams of something more. In every creator who refuses to accept the small story the world tried to write for them. The door they close in your face is not the end of your story. It is just a moment before you find a bigger door. If this story moved you the way Bruce Lee moved through that 4-second sparring session, with purpose, with power, and without hesitation, then please give this video a like, hit the subscribe button, and ring the notification bell so you never miss a story like this. Drop a comment below and tell us, what is the door they tried to close on you? And did you find a bigger one? We read every single comment, and your story might just become our next one.